welcome to Tech Latest from Nikkei Asia, where we bring you the freshest updates from the technology sector in Asia. I'm your host, Katey Creel, and this week I'm joined by our Tokyo correspondent, Tsubasa Suruga, to talk about SoftBank. Welcome to the show, Tsubasa.
Thanks for having me.
I think it's the first time we've been on together. I know you've been, I guess, for
right.
Shotaro.
I appeared a few times with Shotaro, but yeah, it's the first time with you, Katey.
Great. It'll be even more fun with Shotaro. So we're talking about SoftBank for a couple of reasons. And one of the big ones is that in their latest earnings, they reported a net profit for, 9 months through December?
That's right.
That was up fivefold on the year. And that's almost entirely thanks to its investment in OpenAI, one company.
Yes.
So can you tell us a bit about why SoftBank is investing in AI, and something they've been interested in a long time, and why OpenAI specifically?
Yeah, of course. So SoftBank sees AI as the next infrastructure layer of the global economy. And we could say similar to how the internet and smartphones reshape many industries. So Masayoshi Son, the founder of SoftBank, has always tried to position his company ahead of these platform shifts. So like we saw with the internet, he saw the massive growth potential and invested in broadbands and also e-commerce companies like Alibaba. And then we saw SoftBank shifting to telecom and mobile business with the rise of smartphones. So he believes...
SoftBank brought the iPhone to Japan, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yeah. They're the first company to bring, the first telco to bring to Japan. So, it was quite some time ago, but we saw huge lines in front of SoftBank shops because they were the exclusive.
Yeah, my first iPhone was via SoftBank.
Yeah. So. I think many people switched to SoftBank just to get hold of the iPhones. Yeah. But yeah, so now he basically believes Gen AI is that next big shift. But as you said, the sheer scale of the investment is much, much larger. SoftBank has already invested about $34.7 billion into OpenAI, and one of the largest single company commitments in its history.
And that's dollars, not yen.
This one is in dollars, yeah, that's right, yeah. And the report SoftBank is close to be part of the OpenAI's next fundraising round and invest up to $30 billion US. But so far, it's bearing fruit. As of December, SoftBank estimates it has already booked nearly $20 billion US in investment gains from that stake alone. For SoftBank, investing in OpenAI is a shortcut to owning a stake in what could become the dominant layer for the AI industry. And rather than betting on dozens of smaller AI firms, they're concentrating on a perceived category leader.
That's really interesting that they're seeing OpenAI as the shortcut and the bet to this, because they're also invested in NVIDIA and then sold off. But we'll come back to that question, actually, because there's one thing I want to kind of clarify first.
Yeah.
I believe this was at the recent earnings call, but the chief financial officer, Goto, of SoftBank, said the company's aim is to be the number one platform for artificial superintelligence, which is very grand sounding. But what do those words actually mean? Yeah. First, what is a platform? What do they mean when they say platform? And what is artificial superintelligence?
Of course. You could say SoftBank is thinking about building an entire ecosystem for AI. So from infrastructure, semiconductors, energy, data centers, and some of the use cases of AI. So in robotics, software, and AI models. And you can see that in how they've been investing so far. So not just in OpenAI, it is also putting money into the physical infrastructure of AI. So that includes power and grid systems, industrial robots. They announced that they're acquiring a European robotics company called ABV. And we're also seeing data center projects called Stargate. And SoftBank also has its own chip business through ARM.
Right, they've had that for quite a while.
They had that for a while. So SoftBank is essentially trying to own the pieces full stack.
Right. It really does sound end-to-end. I mean, from energy to the chatbots and applications.
That's right. Yeah. And as for Super AI, I think it's SoftBank's shorthand for systems that go beyond today's chatbots and generative tools, and something that they hope to start function as autonomous agents across different industries.
I see. So I was going to ask what investors think about this kind of all-in on OpenAI approach. Though what you've just described is actually, it's quite a broad investment strategy. It just seems that in this certain layer, they see OpenAI as the better bet than smaller companies.
Right.
Why is that? Why are they putting all a lot of their eggs in one basket?
Yeah. So as you said, it is something that even investors are quite split. The earnings highlight both the upside and the potential risk. So SoftBank's main investment vehicle called Vision Funds booked nearly 3.9 trillion yen in investment profit over the 9-month period. But this was largely tied to valuation gains in OpenAI. But SoftBank's capital is becoming, as you said, heavily concentrated in a single company, OpenAI, and that revives familiar concerns with SoftBank about its valuation swings. So the group has a long history of very volatile earnings tied to market sentiment towards its portfolio, and we saw that from WeWork, for example.
Yeah, we were looking, you and I, at the kind of earnings chart over the past several years, and
that's right.
Looked more like a Six Flags roller coaster than a typical.
Yeah. And they're fully aware of that. So, but as for why they decided to sell its stake in NVIDIA, of course they had to fund their somehow more capital in order to invest to OpenAI, but SoftBank hasn't fully explained why they chose OpenAI over NVIDIA.
That was a surprise move, I remember. Was it November?
That's right, yeah. But I believe it reflects SoftBank's belief that they see more competitive edge or bigger growth potential elsewhere, and in this case, OpenAI. But at the same time, they're still quite interested in the hardware side of the AI business. So as we mentioned, ARM is also in part of the chip design business. So ARM is quite central to that strategy, and SoftBank wants ARM to become the architecture backbone for AI devices and data centers, and not just smartphones.
Right.
But I don't know how this will turn out. We're seeing competition intensifying. Google's parent company, Alphabet, they expect to spend up to $185 billion in capital investment this year to advance its own AI.
And investors are equally kind of nervous about that as well.
That's right.
Microsoft's stock had a brief dip when they announced really massive capex as well. So the sums of money being dealt in these days are just really
it's massive.
Something else.
And OpenAI's rival Anthropic is also growing rapidly, and they also planning to go public soon. So it'll be quite interesting to watch out how they'll be deploying their capital too.
And that you raise a good point, is OpenAI is reportedly, or people expect it to go public this year?
That's right, quite a few reports coming up. If OpenAI eventually goes public at a high valuation, of course, that could become one of SoftBank's most important wins, I think, since Alibaba.
Yeah, people are throwing around the word $1 trillion.
That's right,
IPO, I think.
So, some estimates value up to $1 trillion, and at the moment, SoftBank owns roughly 11% of the company. So if market conditions stay strong and OpenAI can still grow further, that SoftBank stake could surge in value. And the SoftBank CFO said many late-stage companies, including OpenAI, are likely moving toward IPOs on a relatively short timeline and could deliver, quote, significant value for the company. So, whether it matches the Alibaba windfall depends entirely how dominant OpenAI becomes and how sustainable its business model is.
Right. Which is obviously the big question hanging over OpenAI and everyone tied to it.
Yes.
And SoftBank could use a win like that because they're also reportedly going to invest quite a bit more money in the U.S.
That's right. So not just helping out OpenAI through its own investments into the company. SoftBank is also helping OpenAI grow further by building data centers and also providing the energy needs. We reported that SoftBank is leading a consortium of about 20 Japanese and US companies to build a massive gas-fired power plant in Ohio. This would be used to power AI data centers that OpenAI would run on.
Right.
And the project is worth roughly $33 billion US dollars. And this is part of Japan's wider commitment and investment pledge in the US.
Right.
So
the $550 billion.
That's right. Yeah, $550 billion US dollars. And yeah, we're seeing other companies like Panasonic and Murata involved, along with major banks in Japan and the US. So it's interesting. It shows how AI is also an energy race. So as you know, data centers require lots of electricity, and governments now see these capacity as strategic infrastructure.
Right.
So SoftBank is trying to anchor itself in both sides, the AI models through OpenAI and the physical systems needed to power them.
Like investing in cars and the oil companies that provide the gas for them to run.
That's right. Yeah. And all the highways, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Good metaphor. So they're going to have a busy year, SoftBank. Potential blockbuster IPO, investments in the US, and yeah, we'll see how the valuations go in their next earnings, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure there'll be more news coming up.
Looking forward to your coverage. Thanks, Tsubasa.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That's all for this week's episode. For more of Nikkei Asia's tech coverage, visit asia.nikkei.com. You can also subscribe to our weekly Tech Asia newsletter, which will be delivered to your inbox every Thursday. Thanks again for listening, and check back with us next week for more updates on the tech trends that matter.